All right. So we're going to continue on with the trajectory that we've been on with the practice the last several weeks, looking at mind, looking at the nature of mind. Yeah. I'm assuming most people are able to follow along with this. If you're really confused, please ask questions or email me, but we've all been practicing together for quite a period of time. So somebody's upside down. Oh, yeah, superpowers.
That could be me, Jack.
It's Christina.
Yeah, that would be my camera's flipping all over the place.
That's okay. That's okay.
Right. It's just gonna have to stay that way for this session.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay, I won't. Sorry. I didn't arrive properly.
Okay. So let's just all kind of sit here quietly for a moment or two, gather ourselves, relax into the space. And this is what we're always doing on some level, is relaxing into the space. So these teachings on mind, on nature of mind, these are what all the practices are leading to. And when we make a connection with this practice, it will serve you very, very well. This is what puts us firmly on the path, this realization. And even though it can seem difficult and unattainable even at times, the intention to move forward with this, the intention to work with this, and the patience to work with this, it will lead you to a deeper understanding of yourself. It will lead you to a deeper understanding of these teachings, and it will lead you to deeper insight and freedom. It will. So stick with it. In our practice of samatha, in our practice of developing calm, we train ourselves to be able to come to a place where there is bliss, clarity, and non-conceptuality. When we do the samatha practice, it leads to these three attributes, if you will. And sometimes it's more bliss, sometimes it's more clarity, and sometimes it's more non-conceptuality. And the non-conceptuality is when the mind is very, very quiet. And it's not making up any stories at all. It's simply being. The bliss is the experience in the body and the mind of blissful energy coursing through. We work with that with the breath, right? We work with that with the breath. And the clarity is that mirror-like quality of mind that is just reflecting what's taking place in the present. Just reflecting. You know that feeling? You know that feeling in your meditation or after your meditation where you're just simply walking into a room to make yourself a cup of tea and there's a great clarity. There's not a lot of stuff in the way. So we are developing these qualities of mind: bliss, clarity, non-conceptuality. And one of the things that we can do, and it's the idea or the principle is used in the Anapanasati teaching, is that we allow whichever one of these three is present, or most present, or strongest, we make that the object. The background of this is that we are constantly investigating our experience. Because the way into the truth of who we are is through our experience in the present moment. We develop these extraordinary states of consciousness, these extraordinary qualities of mind, and we use those to explore our experience. So, as in the Anapanasati Sutta, when the bliss comes up, we can use that as an object. And just to stay with that example for a moment, so we meditate on the breath, we become relatively adept at that, and there is an energetic feeling of bliss in the body. We put our focus on that. And we allow that experience to bleed into looking at mind. We allow that experience of being with the bliss, we allow that to open us up to looking at mind, the nature of awareness, to looking at awareness. It's a very small step. And at that point, it's close, it's easy, because we are not caught up in a lot of conceptual thinking. So there's the experience of bliss. It's in the body, but it's also in the mind. And then we look at the mind. We look at the mind. So with this practice on the nature of mind, we're developing the ability to come to that place where we can look at awareness. And maybe you can just do it like that. But If you can't, or you can't always just do it like that, then we use these meditative techniques to bring us to an access point. Likewise with clarity. There's an experience where the mind feels very, very clear. Very, very clear. It's seeing the arising and passing away of sensation. It's seeing the arising and passing away of thought. That's clarity, right? It's just like a mirror, and it's reflecting. It's a clear reflection of what's taking place in our experience. So we use that clarity. We turn our attention onto that. And we look at that. And we realize that we're looking at awareness, or we're looking at mind. The non-conceptual, when the mind gets very, very quiet. Like Elmer Fudd hanging out in the bushes, waiting for Bugs Bunny. And the mind gets very, very quiet. Some things I can't let go of, sorry. The mind gets very, very quiet. Then we use that. To allow the mind to look at itself. So I breathe something here. I was asked a question last week about somebody said, well, you're telling me to investigate, and I'm just resting in awareness, and then the investigation seems to be adding something on. And it throws me off. This is what the person who was asking the question said. And there's different, when we're working with the nature of mind at different times and with different teachings, there are different approaches. Right now, I'm staying pretty close to the teachings of the Karmapas. In particular, the ninth Karmapa. He has a book called Mahamudra, Eliminating the Darkness of Ignorance. But in the Mahamudra style, investigation is big, is a part of it. And generally speaking, in the Buddhist tradition, investigation into what our experience is important. The difficulty is, when we're doing this practice in resting in awareness, is there's a way that the mind can get quiet, but kind of fall asleep. And we think we're meditating, but we've kind of just found a really, and I'm not saying that this was true with a questioner, because I don't know. I truly don't know. But there's a way that we can find ourselves in a comfortable place on the couch. And there's not that clarity, there's not that sharpness. And invariably, until we see through deeply into the nature of this experience, there's always subtle concept taking place. So we use that quality of, even though we're very quiet, even though we're very attentive, we use the quality of investigation to just, and it's not the investigation of thinking hard, but just looking at what's there. And so the quote, this is a quote from something from the Karmapa. It says, and notice that the nature of this mind cannot be identified in any dimension of space or time. It is nothing whatsoever, and yet there is a vividness, a pristine purity, and a luminosity which cannot be put into words. So we're noticing that. We're noticing when we look at awareness, there's nothing there. But there is this vividness, there's appearance, there's clarity. So we look at it with question. And when we say there's nothing whatsoever, we mean there's nothing of substance there. There's appearance, and then the appearance falls away. There's another appearance, and the appearance falls away. Yet there's an aspect of cognition of this experience. So we're looking at that. And what tends to happen is we can get very, very blissful, very, very clear, or very, very quiet. So we have to remain attentive to what our experience is. And it's not something that I can show you, that somebody can show you. It's not something that I can perfectly explain, which is evident. It is something that you need to, just like I can't explain the taste of sugar. Can't really. It's something that you need to experience for yourself. But these gatherings, these sits together, these talks, the study that you do on your own, they're all means to help us be able to move towards this profound experience of looking at our mind in a very, very deep way. So we have ideas. We have techniques. But you apply these principles, just like what I started the class today with the bliss, the clarity, and the non-conceptuality. So you have these ideas and you put it into practice. You use the bliss. You use the clarity. You use it as a gateway into looking at this non-substantial vividness that we call mind. And we start to get a sense of it. We start to get a sense of it. And that becomes our practice. The problem is we keep trying to think about it. And so that's why this samatha practice is very helpful, because it brings us to a point where our mind is clear enough, is strong enough, quiet enough to be able to get glimpses. So notice that the nature of this mind cannot be identified in any dimension of space or time. It is nothing whatsoever. Yet there is a vividness, a pristine purity, a luminosity which cannot be properly put into words. And sometimes with the experience too, you see more of one attribute than another. Sometimes you're more aware of the clarity. Sometimes you're aware of the emptiness, that there's nothing behind it, apparently. And sometimes you're aware of the, I can't remember now if I said clarity or not. You're aware of the clarity, the emptiness, the luminosity. Sometimes you get more of an experience of one or the other. And what's really interesting as well is when we're doing this practice, and if you do this practice on a daily basis, when you do this practice, it is aligning energy circuits in the body. So you are aligning yourself with that aspect of consciousness, that aspect of mind that is able to experience this. And what you will start to notice is even after a sit, and sometimes it's in a funny way, you can notice it more after, sometimes you see it more or you experience it more after the sit because there's more activity, if that makes any sense. So you get up from your sit and be very mindful in the first 5 minutes after your sit. It's like, because when everything's still and, you know, that idea of that we can find a comfortable place on the couch and we kind of fall asleep. Not that we're falling asleep, but we're not that vivid. Sometimes when we get up and we start to move around, then that aspect of awareness within this field of all this activity of this movement, sometimes that's a really important time. So that's a time where you can have really clear insight into this. I think I've had some of my the biggest insights after a meditation, in between sessions, especially in retreat, in between sessions. So when the sit is over, when the formal meditation is over, for as long as you can, try to work with this. Try to work with this. I'm leading a Zoom retreat, as most of you know, on the weekend, and there's a couple of people, because of their schedule, are not able to attend the whole thing. And if you're coming to me on a regular basis and you're sincere about the practice, I'm pretty flexible. And it's actually not a bad thing. It's like, you really want to do this retreat, you really want to go in, but you got to go somewhere on a Saturday night. That's not such a bad thing. It's not such a bad thing, right? Because it allows you to, you know, go in and out of retreat and back in again. So these times between sessions as well are of equal importance. Okay, it's probably enough for one evening. So just a quick recap. Bliss, clarity, non-conceptuality. With this practice that we're doing with the breath, the bliss is a pretty common one. Start feeling that bliss and let that become the object. But if there's a clarity there that you sense, let that become the object. Move into that, and from that place, look at awareness. And notice it. Notice what's there. Notice what's not there. What are these lines again? It doesn't seem to exist in space or time. It is nothing whatsoever, and yet there is a vividness, a pristine purity, a luminosity.